Good morning. How's everybody doing? I assume those from the east or from the far west got up really, really early this morning as I did. So it's good to see everybody. This is my 20th, I'm not as senior as Greg. This is my 23rd PTC. And I was also part of the board a little while ago. But now I'm just in the planning committee. So I was part of this whole thing, putting this together, and I'm excited about it. So look, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. But I did want to make this reasonably interactive. I don't think you want to hear my monotone voice run through 4 slides. But, I'd love to see if there are questions. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on in the cloud world today and how it's evolving. So why don't we start off? And here's some general statistics of what's going on today. And, I sort of mirror what's going on in the cloud space as to how, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how this conference evolved. It started 40 years ago as a voice trading business where people came to Hawaii and met from mainland U.S. and the Far East, and they came here and talked about exchanging minutes effectively. Now we've evolved, and this is effectively what's happening today. Cloud, has been around a lot longer than we really think, but cloud has evolved quite significantly over the last little bit. If I look at it from my perspective, initially what was happening with people taking their facilities off-premise, it was really around how do I take this and put it in a data center because I don't want to have one single point of failure, or I want to have the ability to take my critical data off premise. Now, today, we've gone through we've actually leapfrogged over the last, I would say, 12 to 15 years. This business has grown so dramatically. Similarly, as I said, the voice business, that has changed dramatically. We're running all sorts of different things, but I just wanted to make that comparison and, bring in the whole PTC effect as well. So today we have single cloud. You can use one provider, whether it be private or public cloud. We have multi-clouds. We also have multi-cloud plus, and then we have the hybrid cloud. Now let me talk a little bit about the difference. So single cloud's pretty self-explanatory. You'll use one provider. Multi-cloud is you'll use a number of different public clouds. And if everybody's familiar with public cloud, so it'd be an AWS or an Azure or a Google Cloud or one of those. Multi-cloud plus is the ability to use and put your workloads in the public cloud, but also have different cloud environments in that one set. And then hybrid cloud is the ability to use both private and public cloud and have that. I'm giving you very rudimentary. I'm not going into great detail because of the limited time that we have today. What's really interesting today is how, the various different enterprises and organizations have adapted to this. So, initially I think there was some hesitancy and resistance from some of the highly regulated verticals today, meaning healthcare, financial services, and government. But I think they're much more open to saying, okay, I would like to outsource my cloud services or outsource my critical data, the workloads that are in today. And that is really happening today. From a firsthand and upfront knowledge, TierPoint provides private cloud, and so I see what's happening today, and I see the migration and the move into the private cloud. Now, many of the customers that I see, but also my peer set sees, they're not just saying, hey, I can rely on one cloud. They're going to say, okay, I need to rely on multiple different clouds, meaning can I use the private cloud for this critical data where it's a highly regulated, so it's a healthcare company, let's say. It's much more secure. They feel that there's a more hands-on approach. But hey, I'm just going to use my storage and I'm going to put it in the public cloud. Now, I'm giving you a very simplistic approach to this, but that's what's happening today. And it's quite interesting as to how it's evolved. Let's talk a little bit about some statistics. I have some notes here I'm going to refer because I can't remember every single number. But this year, 2020, 75% of global organizations are going to have some portion of their business in cloud, which is really a huge migration over the last 10 years where there was huge reticence to say, okay, I'm going to take this out of the back closet where I have, my critical data, my servers, etc. And so there's been really an adaptation to say, okay, I'm going to move. I'm feeling comfortable with the data centers, with using some type of third-party service that can store my data. And I think that move is going to continue to drive. Now, with new technologies coming into play, 5G, IoT, cloud obviously is going to become much, much more important. So I think, we'll see that evolution over the next little bit. Okay, so why do we use a multi-cloud or hybrid solution? So some of the key drivers, look, I think it's workload replacement. You want to ensure that you don't have one single point of failure. You want to diversify risk. Now, what a lot of folks are doing today to potentially mitigate that risk is to say, okay, I'm going to keep some on-premise. So I'm going to keep some in that closet in the back of my office, but I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to take 50% or 60% or 40% or whatever it is, and I'm going to outsource it, right? And we're seeing a lot of that. Now, once that customer, from a use case perspective, says, okay, I believe in this, and it's a stable environment, they're more willing to say, okay, we're going to push more and more out to the cloud. There's a lot of regulatory implications. And I think, ultimately, when you provide, you outsource your cloud services to a third party who's an expert in that area, they can create efficiencies, potentially cutting down on the number of people that you have or the cost. And that's ultimately what we're seeing. With many folks that are outsourcing today. Okay, so what are the benefits? Obviously, cost. You want to reduce your cost. Sometimes it's a real estate issue where you ultimately want to shrink your office because half of your office contains your workload. It's performance and optimization, right? So how do you get better performance? Well, today where most cloud environments are operating, they're operating out of either, let's just take AWS, their own data center or a third-party data center. There's numerous fiber providers that are coming in there that can bring that traffic in and out, and obviously it's quite secure. You have the ability to be flexible, so you can turn up and down your environment really quickly. And for those who remember in the early 2000s when SD-WAN started, where you could burst and bring it back down, that's effectively what's happening today. And we have the flexibility of using newer technology like the incidence of SDN today, which is effectively SD-WAN on steroids today. And it's helping that ability to push this critical data in and out. It's much more reliable. And you're seeing even in areas that were affected with limited power, I think more power is being brought in because obviously there's more and more of the data centers, the big blade servers that require a ton of power. And ultimately, when you have this multi or hybrid solution, you're not tied to one person. You're not tied to one provider. You have the option of using a number of different services. Okay, so what do we have in terms of the roadblocks? I think some of the challenges and the apprehension is really around being comfortable with that provider, that third-party provider, that they have the appropriate skill set. And, it's really a maturation and understanding that this service provider is able to accommodate your needs. Cost management, obviously. I think sometimes you don't realize when you flex and you burst, your cost goes up pretty dramatically, and I think people need to obviously manage that. I think the other thing that we're seeing is, and I'll speak from experience at TierPoint, is really around, we're in tertiary and third and sort of tier 2 through 4 markets. A lot of the folks are still uncomfortable about not being able to reach out and touch their servers. So, that ability to lose control is still there, so you have to convince them that. The other issue, and I think that we talk a lot about this, but it's not really, and I think the expectation is it's usually going to be free, is really around security. It's both physical and it's both the network security, and that's really a hugely important item that we're seeing. It continues to proliferate, but I don't think that we're paying enough attention to security as we go forward, and I think that's going to be really, really important. The amount of hacks that are coming in, the amount of attacks that are coming in, it's just going to rise. Before I got into telecoms, I spent almost 5 years, and we have something in common on this, as an attorney, and I was a district attorney and U.S. attorney in New York City. Thank you. And I think if I look back, and one of my good friends runs the cyber crimes unit at New York County District Attorney, many of the sort of the petty crimes and the folks that were in the streets and working, and I'm getting a time up sign. That was a very quick 10 minutes. But many of the things that, and I'll close in 1 second, that were happening 20 years ago on the streets with street crime have changed, and these effectively, the folks who were performing these horrific acts have gone back to school and learned how to be cybercrimes experts. And that's legitimately what is happening today. So if you look, I take New York City as the model. Really, we've seen a drop in crime, but we've seen a huge uptick in cybercrime. And I get those statistics because I still have access to some of that, but not it's all public. But I think what's interesting is that's going to become much more of a problem as we go forward. I'm going to just quickly go to the next slide. Okay, so what do we do? So you really need to choose. You don't need to choose only one solution. You can choose a multi-cloud solution. You have to find the right mix for your business, whether it's private, whether it's whether it's a hybrid solution. And I think there is a fix and an option for everybody out there. And don't go at it alone. Look for expertise, and I think that's really what you're doing. That is the close. So I'm about a minute over. I don't have time for questions. Which I thought I was going to, but that was a very quick 10 minutes, so I'll turn back over to Greg. Here you go. Thank you very much.